Hi, Erin. Can you hear me?
Can hear you. How are you?
We can hear you. All set. We'll leave you on the screen.
Just be a few minutes. We have a closed session, so we're going to get organized here. We'll start in a few minutes. All right. Good evening, St. Helenans. Welcome to our regular City Council meeting of June 10th. I'll have the clerk do the roll call, please.
Mayor Doring.
Here.
Vice Mayor Deasy.
Here.
Councilmember Barrick.
Here.
Spataroto.
Here.
And Councilmember Summers is absent.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
So we're moving on to item 4, adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to be noted?
There are none.
No changes to the agenda. I'll look for a motion to adopt the agenda, please, in a second.
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion and second. Because Mr. Barrick is away and appearing remotely, we're required to have roll call votes on every matter here, so it's going to take a little bit of time. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Barrick.
Here.
Spataroto.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy.
Here.
And Mayor Doring.
Yes, thank you for that. All right. On to the approval of the minutes. Any corrections or changes to be noted, Madam Clerk or my colleagues? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes of May 27, 2025.
I so move.
I'll second.
Motion and a second to adopt or approve the minutes from May 27, 2025. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Spataroto.
Yes.
Barrick.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yes.
Mayor Doring.
Yes. All right. Moving right along on to item 6, public forum. Members of the public are entitled to speak on matters of municipal concern not on the agenda during public forum. Each person's comment shall be limited to 4 minutes. Each person is entitled to speak on any non-agendized item only once at any meeting. Brief questions by council members for clarifications may be posed and answered, and council members may make requests that items be placed on future agendas. But in accordance with state law, no substantive discussion or action may take place unless and until the matter properly appears on the agenda. So I'll open for public comment. Anyone wishing to address your city council tonight? Please. Welcome, Mr. Bell. How are you?
Hi, Paul. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
For giving me the opportunity, and thank all to the city council members.
Sure.
Good evening. Let's see, get this ready here. On February 4th of this year, I sent an email to Councilman Brock requesting city council to request a financial audit of St. Helena's water and wastewater accounts to determine if the city was or has been complying with California's Proposition 218. In this email, I included several examples of how, in my opinion, the city has used water and wastewater revenue for projects, staff salaries, and litigation expenses, all in contrast with Proposition 218. On February 5th, 2025, Councilman Brock responded to my letter informing me that the city attorney will be gathering or getting together a response to each point per my request. He said it's going to take some time, lots of issues raised here. I've included Michelle in the request to Ethan, and thanks and advice for being patient. About 6 weeks after receiving the above reply and having received no notice from Councilman Brock, I asked Aaron at a city council meeting if I could have his permission to speak to Mr. Walsh about his progress on my letter. I was given the approval, and when I spoke to Mr. Walsh, he told me he was working on his response, but he was not yet completed. About a month later, at another city council meeting, I approached Mr. Walsh a second time during a break to ask him again if he had completed a response to my letter. This time, I was told he had referred my questions to another legal source for their review, and according to Mr. Walsh, they were close to concluding their findings. He added that any findings would be shared with the city management before any disclosure to me. On May 17th, I asked Councilman Brock if Mr. Walsh had presented his findings to the city about my concerns from February, and I was informed, I'll check in this in my scheduled meeting on Monday. I'm sorry this has taken so long. Looks like you might have been over target. Today is June 10th. Over 4 months since my written concerns were given to Mr. Walsh, and although I'll admit I have been inquisitive over this time, I have tried to remain patient. In summation, I've come tonight during public forum to ask City Council to place this matter on a future agenda so that I'll know when I can get a response. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Belt. Okay. Others wishing to address your city council? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Also note that we had a public comment from Mr. Ferenc Bruner that was listed under a written public comment. Want to acknowledge receiving and reading that comment. Okay, on to item 7. Talk to us about it if you want to give the staff direction. Go ahead, yeah. Anybody could do that.
I would like, I'll make a motion. Is that what
Well-
I do? No, you don't make a motion. I'm sorry.
I mean, I think it's appropriate to ask the staff what the status is, and it is appropriate to set something for an agenda when it may be coming, I don't know. I don't know the status of that particular matter.
Are you speaking to Mr. Bell's comments
Yes,
specifically?
yeah.
So I do have a draft memo that I want to circulate to council. It's not there. There are a few issues that I still need to resolve, and I apologize it's taken so long. But with other issues coming up, it's been a little difficult. But why don't we do this? I will get that memo to council. I'll shoot to get it to you by the end of the week, and then we can decide whether or not you want to agendize it. Because part of it is it will be a confidential memo to council, and then you'll have to decide what you do or don't want to disclose.
Yeah, that was the point I was getting to. So we can wait for a while. I think that it's good for our citizens to hold us accountable, but at the same time, it's an extremely complicated issue that you're tackling. And so we'll wait a little bit longer, and we'll report out at the appropriate time. Is that satisfactory, Ms. Deasy? Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, on to item 7, reports by staff and city council, future agenda items, and AB 1234 reports. As I indicated earlier, we met in closed session from 4:30 to 6 o'clock. Mr. Walsh, you want to report out for us on the closed session matters?
Sure. So there were 3 closed session matters as part of the special meeting immediately prior to this meeting. Conference with labor negotiator regarding negotiations with the St. Helena Employees Association, the Police Officers Association, Professional Firefighters Association, and the unrepresented employees. Second item was conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation. And the third was conference with real property negotiators regarding 1480 Main and 1572 Railroad Avenue. And there's no reportable action from any of those items.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walsh. Mr. Comello.
We have nothing to report.
Right. This is a fairly long agenda, so that's great. Thank you, Mr. Comello. All right, we have no presentations and public recognitions tonight. Does not appear that we have any further staff briefing. We are on to consent items. It'll require a roll call vote if, assuming there's no direction to pull any item. Is there any? Anyone wishing to pull an item at this point? Then I'll look for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
So moved.
I'll second.
The motion and a second to adopt the consent calendar. That's item 10 on our agenda. Roll call vote. Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Yes.
Councilmember Barrick,
Yes.
Spataroto,
Yes.
and Mayor Doring.
Yes. Thank you for that. All right. We are now on to our public hearing calendar under item 11, 11.1. And I'll just read this for the record so folks understand what we are going to be discussing. It's an appeal. This is an appeal filed by Caroline Hernandez of Outstanding in the Field, the name of business, I assume, and Jorge Hernandez, property owner, to uphold the May 2025 approval of the application for a temporary use permit in order to allow for the private Andrea Bocelli dinner and entertainment event to be held at the Monte Olivos Estate located at 2500 Spring Mountain Road, St. Helena, within the 20-acre agricultural zoning district with a maximum attendance of 600 persons and to be held on June 20, 2025. Mr. Comello, you can introduce the staff and the item, please.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just introduce, I'll have Senior Planner Jackie O'Neill make the presentation.
Welcome, Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. We can proceed to the next slide. So, might be a bit unusual for you all to see a temporary use permit application before you here at City Council. The reason for this hearing is because on May 22nd, an appeal application was filed following the Planning Commission's decision to approve the temporary use permit. Per the St. Helena Municipal Code, appeal procedures require a 14-day waiting period before the deciding body's decision is final, and appeals must be held at regularly scheduled meetings. When an appeal is filed, any pending decision is suspended. The temporary use permit was heard by the Planning Commission on May 20th, and the event is to take place on June 20th. So due to the constrained timing between that approval, the date of the event, public noticing requirements, and our regularly scheduled council meetings, the applicants chose to preemptively file an appeal requesting to uphold the Planning Commission approval and to ensure that they could have a hearing before you here at the City Council. So I just want to go over temporary use permits generally. The St. Helena Municipal Code establishes that the purpose of a temporary use permit, or a TUP, is to provide procedures for short-term activities and uses that may not otherwise be allowed by the zoning designation on privately or publicly owned properties, with appropriate regulations so that those activities may be compatible with the surrounding areas. Also, per the code, the Community Development Director, at their discretion, may refer a TUP application to the Planning Commission when there are factors such as events with attendance over 400 people. The history for temporary use permits for this site specifically is that in February 2025, staff did administratively approve one TUP application for an unrelated music and dinner event held on this site known as Live in the Vineyard Goes Country. That event was held, and at the time it occurred, staff did not receive any complaints about the event. I just want to bring that to your attention because I know it is brought up in a couple of the public comments that are attached to the staff report. So this is an aerial view, just the same aerial view on each side. I just wanted to have one that has the outline of the parcel itself. It is a large estate parcel in the A20 zoning district. It's accessed by a shared drive, Bieber Road, which is just off of Spring Mountain. So the background for this site is that it is developed with a single-family residence and associated accessory structures. It has an agricultural barn complex that was approved for use as a commercial agriculture olive oil press processing and storage facility in 2014 by the Planning Commission. It is in the A20 zoning district. Per the use regulations for the A20 zoning district, event centers are not allowed by right or as a conditional use. On the 19th of May, staff did meet with a representative of the property to discuss the event history on the site. And on the 27th, staff issued a courtesy letter informing them that event centers are not permitted and that event activities outside of the event that we're discussing tonight are not permitted going forward. So this project is an application for a private ticketed event on June 20th. It would have a maximum attendance of 600 people. The guests would be on site from approximately 4:30 with a hard stop at 10 p.m. Live entertainment is scheduled to end at 9:30, and that is a hard stop. Staff and vendors would be on site from Wednesday to Monday, just after the event, from approximately 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. That is a slight change from what the Planning Commission approved. The original operations plan had all of their vendors off-site on Sunday, but slight changes, so a minor change that is reflected in the updated written statement that was attached to the staff report today. So this is an ancillary event to the larger event happening at Krug on the following Saturday and Sunday. As such, Krug has agreed for parking to occur on their site. Guests will park at the Charles Krug Winery, and they will be transported via mini coach buses and also sprinter vans, which is not reflected on this slide. There is an updated traffic management plan that was attached to the staff report today, and the applicant will be discussing the minor changes to that just for the vehicles that will be used for transportation. The transportation, can we actually go back? Passengers will come in two waves starting at 4:30, and they'll be returning in two waves at 9:30 and 10 p.m. And the on-site parking is limited to essential personnel. This is really important to point out because that private shared driveway is narrow. It does not meet the standards for our roads within the city. So the applicants have been very responsive from the beginning, providing traffic management plans, working with the city to ensure that they can get their guests up to the site and off of the site safely without creating too much disturbance for the surrounding neighbors. So at the May 20th Planning Commission meeting, this item was heard and considered, and it was conditionally approved 4-0 with one commissioner absent. Generally, the conditions of approval that were provided by staff were all adopted. They did choose to include several, I think there was 3 additional conditions that the Planning Commission added. One of them was to have a staging with police and fire present to ensure that the vehicles that they're planning to bring people in on are able to easily get up and down Beeper. That happened today. I know staff from police and fire are here if you have any questions about how that went. There were several public comments. They generally echoed those that are attached.
My question will be, how did that go?
And I know they're available to speak to that. I was told that it was positive. So the public comments were generally related to concerns about safety and ingress and egress on that shared private driveway, as you've read in the comments that were submitted and attached to the staff report. At that meeting, the TUP ordinance was also discussed generally, and the staff present and planning commissioners agreed that the ordinance does need to be strengthened. So that's something that staff will be working with the city attorney to bring forward a zoning amendment in the future, but is not specifically related to this request tonight. So here's an aerial of the site. You can see they will have several long dining tables in front of a stage. They've got several outdoor kitchen areas. Fire has reviewed all of the kitchen plans to ensure that there is adequate space between any ignition sources, no ignition sources under the tents, and an adequate number of fire extinguishers. They'll also be performing an inspection when those outdoor kitchens are set up. The applicant has also provided different staging areas in case there is a need for any kind of medical, fire, or PD response. This is the same, just zoomed in a bit more of where the event will actually happen with the stage, the dinner tables. You can see the shuttle drop-off and pickup area. The shuttles will be bringing people up Beaver Road and then staying on site until it's time to transport people back to Krug at the end of the event. The TUP does not typically require a noise study, but staff does reserve the right to ask for additional application materials. A noise study was one of them, given that there are several sensitive receptors in the nearby area and residential uses nearby. The applicants were very responsive. They provided the noise study, which was peer reviewed by a sound engineer. These are the standards that are set by the city, the allowable standards. And the police department did issue a noise permit to exceed these levels, just very slightly, but none of them would be exceeded after 10 p.m. The noise study also confirms that the sensitive receptors in the nearby area would not experience noises above these allowed levels. The applicants have also agreed to have on-site sound monitoring at the perimeter of the property to ensure that the noise levels that they've committed to will be honored. They'll also be employing a traffic management plan with flaggers along Beeper Road, so the people who live along this road won't be inconvenienced by the one-way traffic, or I should say to minimize the inconvenience that would be caused by the one-way traffic going up and down. There are also several turnouts along Beeper Road that will be utilized, so if someone does need to enter or exit, the shuttles will be able to pull off and let people come out of their driveways or up to their driveways. They've submitted a very robust safety and emergency plan. They will have on-site paramedics and ambulance from RockMed and AMR. They'll have security guards on site. They will be actively monitoring the weather in case there's any wind events that might affect like their tenting, or if there's a red flag warning or something like that in effect. There's staged motor coaches on site during the event in the event of an emergency evacuation. There will be 2 St. Helena police officers on site, and the building and fire department will also be doing pre-event site inspections as well. This is categorically exempt from the requirements of CEQA under Section 15304E, which exempts the minor temporary use of land which has no negligible or no permanent effects on the environment. As this is a temporary activity, this standard applies. And the TUP can only be approved, or the approval can only be upheld if the deciding body can make the following findings: that the activity complies with the applicable standards of the temporary use code section, and that the maintenance and operation of the temporary activity would not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of persons residing or working in the neighborhood of the proposed temporary activity. Given what has been presented in the staff report and here in this presentation tonight, staff is recommending that the council determines that the project is exempt from the requirements of CEQA and approve the resolution upholding the Planning Commission's approval of TUP 25005 in order to allow the Andrea Bocelli Dinner and Entertainment event at the Mont Olivos Estate at 2500 Spring Mountain Road. That concludes my presentation. The applicants are here as well, and I know they have a presentation to share with you too.
All right, thank you for that. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Before I do so, well, I will open the public hearing, but Mr. Walsh, is there anything you'd want to add to this somewhat unusual process where the applicant is appealing this decision, a positive decision in their favor, but it's a little bit unique? You may want to maybe explain that to us. I know that you addressed that briefly, but any concerns or anything that we need to be thinking about in terms of our jurisdiction and our authority?
So really, you're considering this. So right, it is an unusual situation, but the reason why they did this is because the way that our code reads, in the event that someone were to delay a bit and then decide to appeal, then we wouldn't have had the ability to bring this to you prior to the date of the event. So we wanted you to have a voice on this as part of that process. In terms of additional information, you are basically considering this de novo, and what that means is that you don't have to defer to the Planning Commission's decision on this. You're basically considering it as a new body and fresh, and so you get to make your decision based on the information before you. One thing that would be good for you to notice is if the applicant or anyone else has spoken to you about this outside the context of this meeting, it would be good to disclose that for the record so that we're aware of any ex parte communications that you've had on this issue.
All right. I'll look to my colleagues now. Are there any disclosures that need to be made at this point with respect to outside contacts with folks involved in this case?
Can you define that? What does that mean? Can you define that for me?
Sure. So what that means is if members of the public or if the applicant contacted you and had a discussion with you about the item outside of this meeting. So if you had a conversation with someone about it, that you just note for the record that you had a conversation with X person.
I saw a neighbor at a party and talked about it for about 90 seconds.
That's fine.
Others? And I have not had any conversations with anyone about this project. Mr. Barrick? None? Okay. Let me then, as I said, the hearing is open. Understood that the appellant wanted to make a brief presentation. Now is the time to do it, and then we'll open it up for other comments from folks who are interested in this subject. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Andrew Clements. I'm here representing a company called 100X Hospitality. We are the producers and promoters of the Bocelli Weekend in Napa event. So partnering with Outstanding in the Field and the Hernandez family on the dinner at Bocelli's the night prior to the event. They have the presentation. So Dinner at Bocelli's is an event on Friday night in partnership with the Andrea Bocelli Foundation. Andrea Bocelli Foundation is a philanthropic foundation to support underprivileged communities through education, donations, and supplying basic human needs. The event itself is on June 20th at the Monte Olivos Estate in St. Helena. General summary of what we're going to discuss tonight is the attendees, hour of operation, the food program, the run of show, as well as the event map, parking, noise study, and emergency evacuation plans. So the Dinner at Bocelli's overview, as you can see from the schedule, the general run of show is music as well as food throughout the evening. The music portions are broken up in about 5-minute sections throughout the night. We've partnered with Chef Elliot Bell from here in St. Helena to provide the food for all of our guests. As mentioned in Jackie's presentation, we will start transportation from Krug around 4:30 with the event doors around 4:45. The food experience will last from about 6 p.m. until about 8:30, again with intermittent music throughout the night. Go ahead and skip through. So as shown before, this is the event map. The event itself will have a reception to the right side, as well as the seated tables directly in front of the stage. The tables themselves are a long table family style format where everyone is invited to sit down with their partner, whoever they came with, however, join in a communal meal with the stage and performance happening throughout the dinner. As shown before, just a little bit more of a zoomed in image of the actual tables. And then you can also see restroom facilities placed throughout the property there. Here's the traffic management plan again, showing the different flagger locations, signage locations. This was done by a registered traffic engineer in the state of California. So, as mentioned again, medical management will be provided by Rock Medicine with AMR Ambulatory Services. We'll have a dedicated EMT location on site. That EMT will be on site from the start of the build through the event with the additional services of the ambulance, specifically when we have guests on site. For fire safety, we have been communicating very closely with the fire department and also the property ownership who has a fire truck stationed on site in the case of an emergency. Emergency exits will clearly be marked by signage throughout the event site in the case of emergency and evacuation. As mentioned before, we will be having vehicles on standby for the event. We have made a slight change to our initial plans. We'll be utilizing Sprinter vans and minibuses on the event site. With those vehicles, as well as an additional support vehicle for people with disabilities, an ADA accessible van, will be able to have a full capacity of 610 people, which exceeds the number of people we have for the actual event. The reason for the change with the Sprinter vans is just for increased maneuverability throughout the event site, as well as the roads coming up to the property. And then as far as emergency messaging, we'll have pre-recorded messages that can be played over the PA system on the event site, as well as what we call the voice of God, where anybody can use a special microphone to put out an emergency message directly to the guests. As far as emergency monitoring goes, we will have a professional meteorologist who we have on call throughout the event site. With this, as well as our event at Krug, we will be getting daily weather updates as we lead into the event, as well as on event times. At the time of the event, we can easily call into our meteorologist and get a minute-by-minute update on what the potential weather is in the area, as well as share any of that with anybody that needs it. In a shelter-in-place procedure, we have the vehicles on site, as well as there are a number of facilities on site to house a small number of people. We would be utilizing the vehicles in this scenario. However, if we needed to use the existing facilities, they do exist. And as mentioned before, there's a breakdown of the number of guests that can go into each different vehicle type. Here's an overview of the sound study that was done for the event site. As mentioned prior, this was done and peer-reviewed by 2 different agencies. This was done by a company called RSC Audio Engineering, and then peer-reviewed by Saxelby, who was recommended to us by some local organizations. This shows at the maximum potential volume, we will still stay within the threshold that has been approved by the police. A key factor here to take into consideration, while I've mentioned before that the actual performance times are only in 5-minute sections, the music that's actually being played is a string quartet, a vocalist, a piano, things like that. This is not an amplified rock band that's going to be playing on this at this event. It'll be very easily to manage and low volume music. And again, just 5-minute sections at a time, or during the welcome ceremony, the string quartet will be playing for a slightly longer period of time. However, it's a string quartet. Oh. Okay. Any questions for me?
It's an abrupt end.
Yeah.
Any initial questions for the gentleman about the events?
I just have a general question.
Well, let's hold it for now. I don't think so, but we may keep you on standby as this develops.
I'll be right here.
Thank you. I'm sure you will. All right. Okay, I wanted to acknowledge that we have received public comment, written public comment from Edward and Caroline Kuntz, Pamela Samuelson, Terry and Julie Pringle, Michael, two letters from Michael Haley, a letter from Jennifer Haley, a letter from Norman Manzer. Are there others in the public wishing to make comments? I didn't see you stand up as I was looking down, but make comment after you make your comment.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and I just wanted to, as part of the applicant, actually, I represent the property owner.
Yes.
So I figured that's probably an appropriate time now, unless you want me to wait till,
Well, how many minutes do you have?
maybe 2.5?
I can give you 2.5.
Okay, very good. First, we want to thank tremendously the amount of staff work that went into us. Thank you, Jackie, and all the different departments that were involved. We're greatly appreciative of the long hours that they spent on this. And also want to affirm, I'm with the law firm of Abbott and Kinderman in Sacramento, California, and we represent a lot of agencies and people who do these kinds of things. The temporary uses provision in 17.25250, as was presented, is definitely complied with, along with 17.0510, and all those considerations, the findings, the conditions in those subsections are all met here. And so we wanted to affirm that that is the case. But I also want to make just a quick comment here that is in reference to some of the written objections that were raised. And I wanted to assure the council and the city staff that we are not going to host any events in the future at the property that would go beyond family-related affairs. The public philanthropic events that had been placed and to some extent were advertised will no longer take place in the future on the property. Whatever is now being written about these things in the public is beyond our control, and if those events that were talked about are to ever take place, they will not take place at the property. And so I wanted to clear the air on that in light of some of the objections. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. That was very direct and succinct, and under 2 minutes. So thank you, sir. All right, others wishing to comment at this point on this particular project? Find your way to the podium if you have a comment to make. Give your name and welcome. Happy to have you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Michael Haley, and you've heard a lot from me. I made a lot of comments, a lot of writing, and I'm not going to go into it more. It sounds like we got what we wanted, and so I just want to thank you all, and I want to thank Jackie O'Neill from the planning department. You did a great job on it. And it kind of, just sitting here listening to their presentation and all the work that they did on it, if you have to do this much to make something work, maybe that's a sign it's not a good place to do it, And that's about all I want to say. The other neighbors are here because we were all very concerned about it. I don't know if any of them are going to speak, so I just want to make sure they did show up tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haley, and thank you for your written comments, your 2 written comments. All right, others? Please. It's democracy at work. We like the written comments, and we welcome the public comments here. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. My name is Carrie Thatcher. I live at 2482 Spring Mountain Road, which is actually on Beaver Road. I've lived there 30 years. And I am not here to speak against this event that's coming up. I am very happy to hear that the future events that were advertised are no longer going to happen. And I think that a lot of this could have been avoided if there had been better communication between the applicant and the neighbors. The fact of the matter is that if they've got 35 buses or whatever it is running up and down our single lane road, it is going to be an inconvenience no matter what they say. But if it's one time, that's one thing. I think a lot of us were here to object because a couple of weeks ago, there were several potential occasions coming up that would have required the same amount of work, mitigation, et cetera. So I just want to say that thank you very much to all the staff and everyone who did a tremendous amount of work on this. And as long as there's no future huge events going on there other than family, they've already had a nice big family wedding, which is nice. I have no objection. So thank you.
Right, thank you. All right, let me bring it back to the council. I know, Ms. Spatterota, you had an initial question, and happy to have it now.
So, is it the understanding that there will be some city staff at this event? Who is paying for that?
All costs will be reimbursed to the city for city staff being on site, and that is included in the conditions of approval.
All right. I think it would be important for us to have a very brief synopsis, a presentation by law enforcement or fire to let us know exactly how that went, what some of the concerns are, what the mitigations are. In particular, the focus on this roadway, this one-way roadway that it's been brought up. Noise is an issue, other issues, but that roadway, when I've not been up yet. But speak to that and speak to the concerns that you may have that have been addressed by the applicants. Mr. Hartley, welcome.
Yes, last year or 2 years ago during the Blue Note event, we definitely learned our lesson on what not to do and what not to approve. This morning, well, we've been following this project since its inception, and we had a lot of questions from the get-go, which prompted our assistant planner to require that those questions get answered and that remedies were met. Chief Sorensen and I both drove up, along with Lieutenant Tharp, up to the site today. This was Lieutenant Tharp's second trip up there, as him and Chief Sorensen went up there while I was gone to identify a location to pre-stage vehicles throughout the event. We went up there today. Napa Valley Transportation was also up there with one of their medium-sized buses. There's adequate spaces for the vehicles to travel up Spring Mountain Road and up, I believe it's Beaver? Beeper. Or Beaver.
Bieber, two B's.
Okay, like Justin Bieber.
Got it. There you go.
Okay, gotcha. Anyways, there's plenty of room for the amount of vehicles that are going to be going up there, the size of the vehicles that are going to be going up there. There's pullover spots on Beaver Road, so to let residents in or out without the buses having a major influence. Spring Mountain Road, they're going to have flaggers out there on Spring Mountain Road for the corners, which is an added safety benefit. As far as an evacuation goes, while we're on the site today, there are locations for the larger buses, which are going to be staged up there. Once they drop off their passengers, they're not coming back down. They're staying up there throughout the venue. And there is room for them to turn around up top. Should there be a major significant event, a fire or emergency evacuation, the Sprinter vans and the medium-sized van today, which we tested, can actually get down the backside road that dumps out onto Highway 29, which is also paved. And that was the first time I had been down it. And both Chief Sorensen and I both followed that van down it to see how it was navigating. Having 2 officers on site for the entire event, they will be among the crowd and highly visible to help prevent anything from going south. As far as the sound goes, that was a big one. Big concern of us, hence why they did their sound study. After actually setting foot on the property today and realizing that it's set within the mountain range, not on top of the mountain, and the amount of trees and stuff, I think the sound is going to have little to no effect at all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hartley.
John?
Mr. Sorensen, Chief Sorensen, welcome.
Can we move, good evening,
Do you have a
everybody.
video for us?
Let's go to the next slide.
I'm teasing.
Lieutenant Tharp is measuring the road, and in the 10 to 14 range, you want to, about 10 to 14 range. No, that is not a two-way road, and it has bulb outs or pull-outs that we added when Hernandez bought the property. Fire Marshal Capone and I went up there and walked the road many times and made it so you could pull over and get through. So that width won't handle two-way traffic, but it does one-way traffic, no problem. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, weed abatement. In the WUI, this is in the wildland urban interface. It's 10 feet on either side of roads is required. Most of it is owned by the city, both sides of the road from Spring Mountain Road all the way up 2/3, and that was completed today. And this is city staff here. And then the Hernandez crew worked from their gate down to meet the city limit line. So that has been completed today. There might be a little bit of cleanup to do on the Hernandez property, but 10 feet is the minimum, and that was obtained today. Next slide. This is the road off of Main Street and the Hernandez crew. This had much more of a fire load. You could see how tall the grass is. This is up to around the thigh to the waist, and 10 feet is the minimum. But you know what? I asked for a little bit more. I asked for 30 feet on each side, so you'd have a 60, 70-foot swath fire break, and they did it. They got it all done today. And it goes from Main Street all the way up. There's 2 switchbacks, about 1/3 of a mile up. It's almost equal. Bieber Road and this road is almost equal, and all the way up to the event site. So I was pretty happy with that. Is there another slide? Oh yeah, there's the guys working there. Yeah,
I knew you had a video.
God, I love that sound
Videos.
too. Yeah. All right. Is there another slide? Okay. And then there's the Hernandez spot has they got a little bit more. They got about a half acre to clean up here. It's they're going to go a little deeper, and that was 2 o'clock today. Is there another slide? Another slide. Another one. And you can see that they've cleaned it up both sides of the road pretty good. So if there was evacuation and if you had a little grass fire there, it would go to that stubble and then just be, you know, flame length on whatever your fuel is, go 1.5 times. That'll probably be your flame height. Flame length is if it has a wind on it, and it'll be created more, and that's measured diagonally. So I'm pretty happy with that. With whatever it is, 20 buses heading out, all already up there, heading out in one direction, and that's a police when it comes to evacuations. Next one. This is right after Hernandez Gate, right before the property. So it's been well maintained, as we call parked out. You can see the trees have been limbed up. Looks really good. Next slide. And this is a video I took at the site. I spun around. This is where the buses can come in and turn around in this large loop right here. This is actually where the kitchen's going to be. Down that road is towards Main Street. I don't believe this area will be used. It's a little grove. And then I spin around to my command vehicle to get you a 360 of the area. And on your left, can you start it one more time and then stop it, Erica? Yep, go until we can see the event site in. It always does this when everybody's looking, doesn't it? Anyway, I wanted to show you the grove, that the green grassy area that the event's going to be held, but it looks like we're not going to get that today.
We're imagining it.
We're imagining it.
Okay.
There we go. Can we see it? Okay, well, it's right there to the left in that grove is where it's going to be.
All
So.
right.
Any other questions?
Questions while we have Mr. Chief Sorensen here? Any concerns about smoking?
People
Yeah.
smoking?
Yeah.
Smoking?
Yeah. I mean, you go into a bar, you can't smoke in a bar, but you can smoke.
Yeah.
It's outdoor. It's allowed, legal, I assume, in city of St. Helena.
I don't know if they're going to allow smoking.
I'm just,
I
it's
would,
a question I have. I don't have any
there-
agenda on it. I'm just asking the question.
Sure, there would be a concern of that, but this is surrounded by roads, and all the vegetation has been brought down to the maximum length. So,
All right.
I feel fine with that.
Yeah, I don't want to be involved in smoking police. It was a question that was raised
Yeah.
by some of the authors of letters, and so I thought I'd ask
Okay.
that question.
Also, the relative humidity when it comes to a smoking cigarette, cigar, what have you, thrown into grass, it has to be the right fuel at the right time with the right humidity to light off. You can even throw those. Roadsides happen more because the cars are lowering the humidity as they're driving by. So it'd have to be a perfect situation to get it to light.
What happens if we are under some kind of a fire threat or even just wind conditions, humidity conditions, red flag conditions, all of those bad conditions? What do you do in response to that with respect to this event?
I would weigh the situation. What kind of red flag? Is this a red flag in Napa County? Is it only at the Homestake Mine, east side of Berryessa only? Then I have to weigh those factors.
Right.
Get with my CAL FIRE partners who are absolute masters of it. Say, okay, I got 600 people up on this knoll. I'm going to take the battalion chiefs up there that are on duty to familiarize, but that would have to be a call the day of.
All right, thank you. You had an additional comment that you wanted to make? Okay, thank you. Mr. Rosa, do you have anything else to add to it? Okay. Anybody else? Any comments, Mr. Barrick or anyone else on this matter?
No, sir.
All right. Let me close the public comment, bring it back to the council for deliberation. Any thoughts in either support or opposition of this event and the recommended action? The recommended action, by the way, is to determine that the project is exempt from requirements of CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15304E, and approve a resolution upholding the Planning Commission's approval of TUP 25-005 in order to allow the Andrea Bocelli dinner and entertainment event with up to 600 guests on the Monte Olivos estate, 2500 Spring Mountain Road. Ms. Deasy, have any comments or thoughts in terms of moving?
Thank you to everyone for all the work.
Ms. Padaro, anything? All right.
A lot of work. Thank you very much.
Let me just ask this question. I know that there are concerns about the future. It sounds like that address has been affirmatively addressed. Questions, Mr. Barrick? If not, I'll look for a motion one way or another on this matter.
I'll make a motion to adopt staff's recommendations.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Let me bring it back for any other questions, any clarifications needed before we take a vote? Michelle.
I do have one
Vice Mayor
quick
Beasley, sorry.
question.
Yeah.
Quick question. I came into this thinking that we needed to really have the policy discussion in the future. The applicant says there's no events that will happen except for family events in the future. Is it still important for us to have those policy conversations? I'm guessing that it is, but maybe not quite as urgent as I initially thought.
Well, I mean, I think we do need to have those policy discussions, irrespective of this particular event. And going forward, there are other instances that will come up from time to time, and there's some room to make our ordinance stronger. No question about it. Mr. Rose, what do you think?
Exactly. Thank you for bringing that up. This comment actually came up at the Planning Commission hearing, and so we do actually have it on our work program in the next 30, 60 days to work with the City Attorney's Office.
Bocelli, beautiful music. There are a number of places in our beautiful community that are probably more appropriate less dangerous, but I hope you convey that sentiment. Our community is striving to get stronger in the arts and culture. We obviously support those who are involved in charitable endeavors. Our small little community is a beautiful community cherished by all of our locals, but we open it up to others to enjoy also. And so I want you to express that sentiment. All right, I'm going to turn to you, Madam Clerk, for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Barrick,
Yes.
Spataroto,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Yes.
and Mayor Doring.
Yes. All right. Thank you for that. A lot of work by the staff. Thank you for all of our staff. Thanks for folks going up today and over the last couple of weeks to really assure us about the safety and to stay on top of this. Thank you for all the speakers. Thank you for the public comments. Democracy in action. Thank you. All right. I'll let the room clear a little bit, and then we'll take 2 minutes here before we go on to our next item. There. All right. Is the staff ready to move forward with the next item, 11.2? I'll just read it for the record so the folks out in the public at home are understanding what's going on in addition to our folks here. We're on to item 11.2, request by Brody Group on behalf of the property owners, Fulton Junction Partners, LLC, for approval of a general plan amendment and zoning map amendment to change the property's land use designation from service commercial to agriculture and to concurrently rezone the site from service commercial to 20-acre agriculture, also known as A20, to accommodate the future construction of a single-family home at 1030 Fulton Lane, and that's APN 009-194-005. Mr. Kamali, I'll let you introduce the staff and the report.
Mr. Mayor, once again, I'll turn it over to Jackie O'Neill for her presentation.
Ms. O'Neill.
Thank you. Andrew, I need you to.
I should have said Senior Planner Jackie O'Neill.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Camello. And thank you for introducing the item. So as you introduced, this is a general plan amendment and zoning map amendment request to change this property at 1030 Fulton Lane, the land use designation from service commercial to agriculture, and subsequently the zoning from service commercial to 20-acre agriculture to accommodate the future construction of a single-family home. The Planning Commission considered these requests at the May 20th Planning Commission meeting. Approval of these requests would result in modifications to the general plan land use diagram figure 2.1 and to the City of St. Helena's zoning map. We can go next. So a brief background on the site. This is an approximately 39,000 square foot property. It's located within the urban limit line. It's one of, well, we'll get to that. It's within the urban limit line. The parcel is the only commercially zoned property north of Fulton Lane and east of the railroad tracks. This parcel has been vacant since 2010, and it's been designated for commercial uses since the adoption of the 1975 general plan. Since that time, it's been utilized for various legal and non-conforming uses. In 2019, the Planning Commission approved a design review request that would allow for the construction of two-story office buildings. One was approximately 7,300 square feet, the other approximately 3,100 square feet. That project never proceeded to construction, presumably because of the COVID-19 shutdown. You can see why office buildings maybe weren't a priority for developers during that time. On September 10th, 2024, the City Council did consider a request by the applicant for a preliminary review to amend the general plan designation from service commercial to agriculture, which was recommended for referral to the Planning Commission. On May 20th, 2025, the Planning Commission considered the requests and adopted a resolution recommending that the City Council approve both requests. At that meeting, the Planning Commission did raise concerns about creating an A20 parcel within the urban limit line. If these requests were approved, this would be one of few A20 parcels within the urban limit line, not the only one. And they did request that a topic for future consideration be that the City Council direct a study of the land use designation of the smaller A20 sites within the city, including those in the Fulton Lane corridor, to be considered as low-density residential. As you know, A20 sites that are less than 1 acre are subject to the LR1A development standards. We do have a number of small A20 sites, as any residential site outside of the urban limit line is designated as A20. So that would be something that we would consider in the future. Here's an aerial view of the site. As you can see, it is vacant with the exception of some temporary storage structures along the west side facing the railroad tracks. There are a number of mature olive trees that are planted along the street. And other than that, the site is vacant. This is a conceptual site plan. This is what precipitated the request for rezoning. Single-family residential is not allowed use within the service commercial zoning district. I just want to clarify that this is not part of the request. The applicants would be required to come with a future application for design review for developing this as a single-family residence. They also intend to have an ADU on the site. So this is the current general plan map. This is the site circled in red. You can see that it is service commercial. There are a few parcels across the railroad tracks that have the same designation. To the north, west, and south, everything is designated A20, or excuse me, agriculture for land use. The proposed general plan map would change this from service commercial to agriculture, so it would be contiguous with the sites surrounding it. And the same is true for the zoning map. This would change this to A20, which would be contiguous with the sites surrounding it. So after consulting with the city attorney, this was determined to be exempt from CEQA pursuant to section 15303, which exempts the new construction or conversion of small structures. The reason for this being is that that would be the same exemption that would be utilized for future development. So they would need to have the same CEQA request to avoid any piecemealing under CEQA. Designating the site as agriculture would create consistency with the land use designations, as we saw in the previous figures. And rezoning the site is required to be consistent with the agricultural land use designation. As we just discussed, though, because of the size of the parcel being under 1 acre, it would be subject to the low density 1 acre minimum development and design standards. So it's not a big change, but just want to point that out. And those standards do allow for the construction of a single family home. So with all of the evidence presented in the staff report and in this presentation today, staff recommends that the City Council find the proposed changes to the General Plan Figure 2.1 and the city zoning maps are in compliance with CEQA pursuant to Section 15303 Class 3 and adopt the attached resolution approving the General Plan Amendment and introduce and waive the first reading of the attached ordinance for the zoning map amendment to rezone the property at 1030 Fulton Lane. That concludes my staff report, and I'm available for questions.
Any initial clarifying questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, I'll open it for public hearing. I'll open the public hearing, invite public comment at this point.
The applicant is here and does have a presentation that he would like to share.
That'd be fine.
Good evening, Mayor Doreen, members of the council, city attorney, and staff. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Nice to see you, Eric.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thank you. I was going to do a presentation, but there's no need to repeat what staff had just mentioned. So I just will fill in a couple gaps in the interest of keeping your meeting short tonight. I believe the 2019 proposal was simply for offering something to sell, providing some equity that there's a possibility for a project, but it really wasn't desired at that particular time. I also believe you have a conflict between your map and your actual written policies, and changing this to the A20 is actually more in keeping with the written policies of your recently adopted general plan. And as you know, the zoning district is commensurate with the general plan, so that needs to be updated as well. And really, I mean no offense, but I think the only reason why this is designated currently as service commercial is because the previous uses existed there. And if, to be visionary, it really should have been an agricultural district, because the railroad is the dividing line between the urban uses and the more rural agricultural uses. And if that was continuing to exist, the more predominance of commercial uses that you have in that zone, that can induce other properties to want to desire to become more urbanized as well. And it's our particular opinion, based on conversations with the neighbors along Fulton Road, that the service commercial uses that are allowed in that district, primarily automobile service related, aren't a desired use in that particular area of town. And so we're addressing three factors really: compliance with the written policies of your general plan, a desire of the neighborhood, and a desire of my client. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Here for any questions.
I'm not sure if you said your name for the record.
Eric Lundquist, representing the client with the broker.
You did now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I know you are, but thank you for the record. Okay. Others wishing to address the city council on this item? I guess I have a couple of questions. Maybe they probably, well, I know they date both of you, but so Mr. Lundquist had made a sort of maybe an informed comment about the purpose, why this was zoned and general plan for service commercial. Any thoughts from our staff on that? One of the thoughts that I had was to, because we may not have enough service commercial in the city, and it would be nice to spread out those uses throughout the city, uses that may not necessarily be automobile related, but important, maybe in conjunction with wineries, agriculture, other things that our city needs. And so has there been thought given to that? I guess a roundabout way of saying, do we have enough surface commercial zoning in our city, and are there needs that you can think of offhand to have more service commercial? And one, and I don't even know if this falls within service commercial, but folks who operate, for example, tree companies. You know, there's people who have these businesses that are constantly coming and saying, we don't have a place for our vehicles or for our employees or for whatever. I'm not even sure if that would fall into this category, but those kinds of operations that serve our community but are difficult because of the lack of land use associated with that. Mr. Rosa, if you get my point.
Yes, and you are correct. I was not here during that general plan update process, which I know was lengthy. There was a lot, I know, of public comment. So what I can say is that I do see that site, if the planners were going parcel by parcel, that's a disturbed site. So it doesn't jump out as like, oh, this should be agriculture, right? So I think at that time there must have been a thought that the site could redevelop with other commercial uses, which are, as you know, are contiguous on one side of it. And but I don't know if there was ever really a market study that weighed, what do we need more of in the city as part of the general plan update. Certainly we're going through that process with the downtown specific plan. And then, of course, post-COVID, there's been a radical shift in the number of commercial properties that are leased. So with our aggressive RENA number, we are always looking to look at creative ways to allow for housing to be built, which this certainly fits that solution. So
right.
That's the best I can offer,
That's
having
fine.
not been
Thank
here
you.
during that process. Thank you.
Thoughts from my colleagues on this particular item?
I think you make an interesting point. I don't know anything about how much service commercial we have, and does most of that exist over on La Fata and
Melville,
yeah. It would be interesting to know, but.
Any concerns about this particular item? Any further discussion? I don't know if anyone wants to weigh in. If not, I would entertain a motion one way or another on the matter, unless there's some burning question or comment or policy discussion that we need to have. Michelle, Vice Mayor Deasy.
That's
I'm
okay.
getting a little lax.
I did get one question from a member of the public, which was why has this not been offered up as for housing, and can that be addressed? Why someone asked, is this not a good place for housing? We need so much housing. So if you could just talk about that briefly.
Yeah, the time that we would have analyzed that would have been as part of our housing element site analysis, which was very thoroughly done. And it might have been some constraints related to the size of the site. I know there was a lot of criteria, and so that site was screened out. But certainly with the 820 now, at least 1 to 2 housing units can be built.
Thank you.
All right. Staff has fairly well laid out the recommended actions. They're listed. I don't know if you have that in front of you, but I can read them again. I will read them. It's on the first page of the staff report. Find the proposed changes to the general plan, figure 2.1, and the city zoning map are in compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15303, Class 3. Adopt the attached resolution approving General Plan Amendment 25001 to update General Plan Figure 2.1 to change the General Plan land use designation of the of the property located at 1030 Fulton Lane from service commercial to agriculture. And 3, introduce and waive first reading of the attached ordinance for zoning map amendment, ZMA 2025-001, to rezone the property located at 1030 Fulton Lane from service commercial to 20-acre agriculture and incorporate these changes into the general plan and zoning maps. Be happy to entertain a motion to adopt the staff recommendation.
I make a motion to adopt the staff recommendation.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion by my colleagues? All right, I'll look for a roll call, Madam Clerk.
Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yes.
Councilmember Spataroto.
Yes.
Councilmember Barrick.
Yes.
And Mayor Doring.
Yes. Thank you for that. All right. We're here. Everybody feeling okay, or we want to go one more? We take a break. Let's see. All right, 11.3. We'll finish this out with 11.3. This is, the subject of this is to introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance adding Chapter 8.44 to Title 8 of the St. Helena Municipal Code, adopting the fire hazard severity zones as recommended by CAL FIRE, and to provide authorization for fees for the inspection of properties that are sold in high or very high fire hazard severity zones. I see that Chief Sorensen is at the podium without looking. I feel his presence. Yes, Mr. Sorensen, go ahead.
I'm ready.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll just hit on a few portions. In February of 2025, right after the devastating fires in Southern California, the Office of the State Fire Marshal released a fire hazard severity zone map, which was coming, but it was sped up due to the fires. In local responsibility areas, LRA, you'll hear that. LRA is local response area and SRA is state. The map is attached to the staff report and identifies moderate, high, and very high fire hazard severity zones within the city of St. Helena. The Office of the State Fire Marshal developed the area map for review. Can we bring that up, Erica? The Office of the State Fire Marshal developed the recommended City of St. Helena map using a science-based field-tested model and assigns a hazard score based on the factors and influence like likelihood of fire behavior. The fire hazard severity model for wildland fires has two key elements: probability of an area burning and expected fire behavior under extreme fuel and weather conditions. Many factors are considered, such as the fire history, existing and potential fuel, natural vegetation, predicted flame length, blowing embers, terrain, typical fire weather for an area. And so there's 3 different zones. There's the map right there. We have the moderate, high, and very high. And so listed in the staff report is the disclosure for the classifications required for a sale of a property. That would be in the moderate. Also for high would be new constructions will be required to adhere to wildland urban interface standards, the California Building Code, which Phil is here to, if you have any questions. Disclosure of the fire hazard severity zone classification required by the time of the sale, and then the very high has much more, including homeowner in very high must maintain defensible space around their homes, requiring clearing, maintaining vegetation, which is kind of an overlap on our ordinance that we have. Disclosure of the fire hazard severity classification required at the time of the sale. And lastly, the fire map was created by CAL FIRE under the direction of the state fire marshal without local jurisdiction input or influence. You got it. This is it, the model, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's the bad part. There is a body of water in there that I don't know where is, that doesn't exist in St. Helena, and it's in close to very high, and okay, I'll take that. But as you can see, do you see the next slide, Erica? This is when you type in your address, you can put in your address and you can see your structure through the map. It doesn't show up very well right now, but this is this is City Hall, would be on the back. That thing looks like a spoon. That bottom portion of the spoon in that medium mustard color, that would be in high, and that's City Hall. City Hall didn't do very good. It's all in high. Vineyard Valley did not do very well. It's in, half of it is in high, not in very high, but it's in high. And so what's coming in the fall, it's in committee right now with the state, is what's going to happen in the zones around the structures. The 5-foot zone, that is 5 feet from the structure. It's still in committee. We won't know, but late fall we'll be rolling this out for 2026, and then there'll be 5 feet to 20 feet, whatever they come up with, and then 20 feet to 100 feet. Which there's zone 0 right next to the house. Then there's 1, and then there's 2. Zone 2 won't be applicable to any of the structures in town, a regular lot, because it's too far. The property doesn't go that far. So that is the fire severity map for St. Helena. Is there any questions?
Questions from my colleagues? Ms. Patarotto.
So my question actually, regarding there's a defensible space certificate, how long do they last before you have to get a new one?
Oh, great question. We've rolled that out to, let's see, this is our 3rd season. I haven't been asked that. When you have it, it's good. So if you're needing it for insurance, if they say it's what their criteria might be 3 years or 5 years, then you would go buy the insurance what you need it for.
Thank you.
Yeah.
By your comments, are you suggesting that there's a website where you can put in your address to be more exact? This map is not exactly accurate in terms of how it hits certain cul-de-sacs and certain corners. And
when you look at it on the thing, go to our website,
yeah,
and you can click on the fire severity maps. It'll bring you right to this site, and then go for where you can add the address.
You can add the address,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and I was looking at it today on the city, on our site, and I think I need to make it a little bit bigger and a little easier to go. But you can see the shadowing of where the structure is. So if it touches the structure, the whole structure's at it.
Okay.
Okay.
Understood. What are the implications of these maps with respect to the ability to either keep or obtain insurance? Are they related?
The insurance companies are not supposed to use this map.
They're not supposed to use this map?
I think they do.
Well, we don't want to say that in public.
Right.
But okay.
Yes.
All right. What would be circumstances where you were not requested but decided on your own to inspect a property and then were able to get fees? What kinds of circumstances where someone would ask you and then you would do it on your own? I'm not sure if I get that, but I think it's laid out that you're allowed to get fees if somebody requests an inspection or you decide to do an inspection.
Sure. Right now they're free for the.
Understood. But so the whole idea behind this ordinance is to be reimbursed the fees, correct?
Yeah. Let me ask Phil. if you can answer that.
I'm just trying to understand what triggers those kinds of decisions. Bill?
Yeah, we don't have any set fees, so it would just provide for us to reimburse the cost to the city for the inspection, but there is no fee that I'm aware of at this point in time.
Okay. So when it says somebody requests that the city do an inspection, what circumstance does that cover?
Have you guys been doing it just as a courtesy, or? Yeah, so the fire department has just been doing it as a
Okay.
courtesy. So
All right, I understood. So a property owner decides, hey, I need to have an inspection for whatever purpose they want. We have, under this ordinance, assuming it gets adopted, we would have the ability to charge for that fee.
we could.
We don't know if
no
we will.
plans at this point in time, but we could.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Isn't that the major aspect of this ordinance, or no? Am I missing that? Or are we just accepting the state's determination?
We're basically accepting the state. This is like a model ordinance that the state
All right.
provided. So
Okay.
they're allowing for jurisdictions to recover fees, probably in areas where there's more impact. Our city really isn't that impacted. The outskirts are, but not really in town.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay. Other questions or comments from my colleagues? Mr. Barrick, we know you're still there. Just checking on you. All right.
Yes.
Ms. Deasy, any questions or comments? Anybody ready to make have I opened it for public comment? I have not. I'm going to open the public hearing and invite public comment at this point. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for either further discussion, or if somebody's brave enough to make a motion to adopt the staff's recommendation, that would be great.
I'll make a motion to adopt the staff recommendation.
All right. And there's a motion and a second. Is there a second, Ms. Deasy?
Sure, a second.
Okay. So, the recommendation, to refresh your recollection, is to introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance adding Chapter 8.44 to Title 8 of the St. Helena Municipal Code, adopting the fire hazard severity zones, and 2, provide authorization for fees for the inspection of properties that are sold in high or very high fire hazard severity zones. Madam Clerk, there's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilmember Spataroto?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy?
Yes.
Councilmember Barrick?
Yes.
And Mayor Doring?
Yes. All right, thank you for that. And we are, let's see. Okay, let's plow through it. We're on to old business. Very old business, Mr. Camelo. 12.1, propose approval of a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2025, 2026, and 2026, 2027 biennial budget. I assume staff doesn't need a break at this point. I'm happy to take one if anybody wants to. I'll take one at 8 o'clock then. We'll get done by 8 o'clock on this one.
Sounds great, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'll do the first part of the presentation, and then Director Kellogg will do the second part. You have seen most of this presentation before. We have adjusted some numbers, so for the first few slides, I'll go rather quickly. So you've seen this before. We, as I've said before, city's finances are stable but stressed. Revenues grow, but expenses outpace the revenues, and so on. So I'll move on to the next page. These are our goals. Of course, you know these. It's been on our website. The goals themselves haven't changed, but we have some new strategies. We'll be bringing them to the council for approval potentially as early as the 24th of June. If not, we'll bring it in July. By the way, I should say that those changes were made as a result of your previous retreat, where there were some really good ideas that came up. So during the next year, we expect that we'll be working on some of these issues, if not all these issues: streets master plans, parks master plan, the downtown specific plan. We definitely want to work on our discolored water mitigation and elimination. We are going to be working on our municipal review through LAFCO. We are currently involved in the sale of city properties, and of course, we got about $70 million of CIP work in our Public Works Department and other departments. Here's the revenues for the next 2 years. We continue as it's shown here. The big picture is that property taxes continue to be the largest portion of our revenue. Second is sales tax. Third is TOT, followed by other smaller revenue components. We have kept the percentages approximately the same since they don't really vary from year to year. So here's a comparison based on historical information. As you can see, property taxes are more stable, or are growing, I should say, whereas in that sense growing, stable for me. Sales tax and TOT is more constrained. You've seen this before as well. Some of our expenditures are going up by double digits. In this case, we were surprised that our healthcare insurance only went up by 4%. In the last couple of years, it's been going up 8% and higher. But as you can see, some of the other components have gone up significantly in double digits. So pension liability, I don't want to, it's never, well, it's always important to talk about a pension liability because it's growing dramatically, even though we are not adding to it. It's because of the usage, and the liability is there. For the last 5 years, for example, it's gone up by about $5 million. And I always point out that the city's revenues haven't gone up by $5 million. And so this is a challenge. We need to find a way to pay down our accumulated liability.
Do you want to go back to that slide and provide a little bit more detail there?
Certainly.
To explain
Yeah.
the mandated payments and then the discretionary payments that the city has been making, except more recently?
Yeah,
Just
so
talk about that a little bit so the folks at home understand what that means.
certainly, let me step back and also say, first of all, that much of this liability was retroactively created by legislation by the state legislature way back in the 90s. Unfortunately, the legislature, in their ultimate wisdom, decided to give various, as a result of some requests by primarily the CHP and state staff, state unions, to give retroactive benefits. What that essentially means is that employees today contribute toward their own retirement, and the city or an employer also contributes to the employee's retirement. And there's a return on the invested amounts that generate the third component that pay the pension. When the state legislature made that decision to go retroactive, what it essentially did was give all employees who were existing at the time a benefit towards which the employer and the employee had never contributed. That created a huge liability. And what we're dealing here today is largely that liability. I want to emphasize, this is not liability that's been created by existing employees for the most part. So, and what it also means is that the city is on a sort of pay-as-you-go basis, meaning that we get a bill each year from CalPERS, and the city pays that entire bill. What we were doing until a couple of years ago was paying extra towards this liability. We stopped doing that because we were using our reserves, and as you know, we are challenged in our budget. So we suspended that, and as we think about revenue measures and revenue options, we need to be thinking about not just paying for our existing operational needs, but also paying towards these kinds of liabilities that are not going down and in fact are growing. Hopefully that answers your question, Mr. Mayor.
It does. Thank you.
What we're left with for 2025 is a gap essentially of $1.4 million. This is after we address some other there are some adjustments. I'll go through them in a minute. One of those is, if you notice, we talked about reductions from the budget, original budget, about $1.94 million. We have made some adjustments, and so that is now down to $1.89 million. The labor cost on average is about 3.2. I think that number will need to adjust based on some direction we received in closed session today. By the way, we'll be bringing the labor union contracts. We expect to bring the labor union contracts to you for approval in open session at the next council meeting. We also...
And for the public, explain in a little bit more detail when you say labor cost 3.2%, what is it that you're saying?
Yeah, thank you. So the city has been in negotiations with our bargaining groups. And as part of that process, the city has chosen, and since this is public, I'll say this, the city, in a previous slide we explained that the city had granted, or at least budgeted at that point, an inflation factor of 3%, essentially COLA. But there are some other negotiated items, and that total will be presented next time in the open.
That's sufficient.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On the next item, we, as part of this budget, we also froze 2 positions. We froze the city clerk position and the assistant city manager position, and that savings has accrued as part of the budget. I do want to make an announcement, and that is that I've assigned, since there's work to be done in the assistant city manager role and no one else in the city manager's office to perform that role, I've assigned the public works director, city engineer, also the title of assistant city manager. I just want to be very clear, though, that he is not going to be receiving compensation. He continues to serve as the department head in public works, but he'll be assuming some new responsibilities as part of that title. So in other words, there's no cost associated with it. I've also, since I've frozen the city clerk position, appointed, for at least for the work is concerned, program manager Andrew Bradley as our city clerk. So he'll be training and he'll be performing that role on a go-forward basis. And finally, we are, as I mentioned earlier in the previous slide, we are going to be using about $1.4 million in reserves, from reserves, to balance our budget. Let's see here. These are the changes that we have made for the budget from since we last discussed. I'm a little surprised because they're different formats, so forgive me. These are, you want to take this over? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. So these are some adjustments that we've made to the draft budget since you've last seen it on May 13th. Those top 2 line items are actually increases in our estimated revenues. We received updated sales tax projections after the May 13th meeting, and that also does impact the fiscal year 25 budget as well, too, which also saw a positive increase on sales tax of approximately $200,000. The next line item there, the contributions from government, is actually an agreement we're going to be bringing forward to you on the next council meeting with an MOU with the St. Helena School District to help fund 75% of the school resource officer. And so that'll be revenues that we'll bring in to offset that line item number 3 there under expenses for the school resource officer. And then some additional items we did here is we did increase the amount of chamber funding by $50,000. We took the recommendation from the Finance Committee and moved the sidewalk program out of general fund and into Measure T, Measure U. We will need to bring a 5-year list back to you for approval and then back to NVTA for approval for that to be an authorized expense. And then the next 2 items there is the dispatch service contract and the dispatch personnel. We removed the dispatch personnel costs from our budget, but then added in the contract with the City of Calistoga that was previously approved. And then on the under FY 25-26, that Vine Trail, we recorded as a liability for fiscal year 25, so it did reduce the fund balance, the estimated ending fund balance at fiscal year 25, and it's sitting in a liability right now. It's not been authorized for payment at this point, but we do see it as reducing our available fund balance. And so then we did remove that from the expenses in FY 26. And then at the last meeting, you approved the CIP, and in that CIP included a $300,000 contribution for the St. Helena to Yountville cost share, and so that we did include that expense as well too. So what you're seeing there is on FY26, there's a positive impact to the fund balance of $448,750,
And then on FY27, a negative impact to the estimated fund balance of $183,071.
And this is a list you have seen previously. These are the items that we essentially had experienced some budget cuts. If you notice that pretty much all of them are the same personnel reductions, as I mentioned earlier. Those primarily are the two positions I discussed, the assistant city manager position and the city clerk position. The only change here is a chamber contribution. We have reduced that from the previously it was 100,000 to 50,000, and I know that the chamber folks are here and they'll want to comment about that issue. We'll provide more information later. Going back, so the total budget reductions is still in the amount of $1.99 million, approximately $1.9 million. All that means is that for the first year, we expect the fund balance to be at 42%, 42.8% at the end of the first fiscal year. And the second fiscal year, we expect it to be down significantly to 34%. As this slide shows, it simply means that we are, for the next couple of years, projecting expenses to remain over expenditures. I'm sorry, expenditures to remain over revenues. And this I just want to share. It always helps to keep note that over the last 4 years, we have staff has been able to obtain about $7 million in awards, for grant awards from various sources. So that's approximately 33% of our annual budget over the last 4 years. So it's a pretty nice number. With that, I'll turn it over back to Dr. Kellogg.
Thank you. Okay, so this first slide shows the estimated revenues for the water fund. There were no changes made on this from the prior meeting, but again, I'd just like to point out that the estimated revenues that we have here are less than what was projected in the rate study to match the decline in water usage that we've been experiencing over the last year. And then on this slide here, it shows the estimated expenses by the different departments. I would like to point out that there's about we did cut the overall expenses by approximately $426,000. And then we have about $120,500 in one-time expenses in there, mostly related to public works. Next slide. And so what we're of fiscal year 26, we're estimating to have a fund balance of about $6.9 million with 10 months in operating reserves, and about 1.36 in debt coverage. This does allow us to set aside about $638,000 for capital contributions as well, which is not identified for use at this point in the CIP, but in case some projects have overruns, we have that amount that we can transfer. And then in the following fiscal year, we're showing an estimated fund balance of $7 million, again, still at 10 months operating reserves and a 1.43 estimated debt coverage. And that also allows for a 1.4 million set aside for capital contributions. And so the CIP that's being delivered in FY26 related to the water side is that Napa intertie transmission main replacement, the Bell Canyon intake tower, and then some system-wide pipeline improvements. On the wastewater side, again, there's been no changes to the estimated revenues. These are actually what was projected in the rate study. We've been coming in pretty close to on target with what was projected in the rate study on the wastewater side, so we felt no need to adjust there. And then the next slide shows our estimated expenses. Again, in this area, you can see our largest expenses in that public works section there. We did have about some one-time expenses in there as well too. And I apologize, I said 120,000 on the water side. That was actually combined between water and wastewater. And then on both the water and wastewater funds, we did add an additional expense in there based on our prior conversation related to the CARES program. So we did increase the CARES program from the initial amount of $85,000 up to $150,000. We did retain the $85,000 in general fund, but budgeted the extra $65,000 in the water and wastewater funds. And what we'll do is we'll use excess revenues from finance charges and investment earnings to cover that amount in order to maintain Prop 218 requirements. If for some reason we don't earn enough in the investment earnings and finance charges between that difference to cover that 65,000, it will need to come from general fund. And then vice versa, if we earn more than that 65,000, we can reduce the impact on general fund and pay for it out of water and wastewater. And so what we're showing on the wastewater fund here is that at the end of fiscal year 26, we'll have about 2.5 million, which is 5.7 months. It's still below the council threshold of 6 months, so we're not recommending any capital contributions in fiscal year 26, but we do maintain our estimated debt coverage requirement above 1.25 at 1.30. And then next slide. And then in fiscal year 26, we are getting back to that 6-month council requirement at 2.76 million. And we've identified that we can contribute additional or reserve additional contribution of 198,000 for capital contribution. That estimated expenses actually does include some funding for one project, but in case there's some project overruns, we have about 200,000 available, and we'll still be able to maintain that required operating reserve and our debt coverage requirement. And I believe this is going back to you.
I'll just skip the slides. This is just showing that we have improved. This is where we were at 49% at one point. We are now at, for our PCI score of 64%. Sorry, not percent, 64, which is improved. This has to do with, sorry, these are own slides. I should have removed them. We'll just move on to say that we're happy to answer any questions you may have, and I want to thank again the executive team, Erica Opp, Martin Beltran, Sierra, and Mandy for all their assistance.
All right. Any initial questions on some of the updated information? I don't want to get into a whole lot of detail until I hear from public, but any need to have anything clarified initially? Let me take a moment then to open the matter for public comment. Welcome public comment at any time, particularly from the Chamber of Commerce.
Particularly from.
Welcome, Marcus. How are you?
Great. How
Good.
are you guys doing? Good evening. On behalf of the St. Helena Chamber Board of Directors, I want to begin by sincerely thanking the City Council for your continued support and the time you've just dedicated to recent meetings with the Chamber. These conversations have been invaluable as we work through the logistics of our partnership. It's important to reinforce that this is a partnership, not a subsidy. There has been a misconception that the city's financial contribution is simply funding the chamber. In reality, the city is investing in shared responsibilities, most notably the operation of the City Welcome Center. At the last council meeting, we provided more than 150 letters of support from local businesses emphasizing the importance of continued funding at the current level. For the record, prior to May 13th council meeting, the Chamber voluntarily proposed a $25,000 reduction in our funding request as a gesture of good faith and sensitivity to the city financial position. Since then, the city manager returned with the exact same amount as $75,000 as a counteroffer. We responded formally with the following points. The Chamber has managed the City Welcome Center in good faith, assuming the responsibility years ago as the city requested to bring bathrooms to our town for the residents and the visitors. While the lease is in the Chamber's name, it was established with a clear mutual understanding of shared costs. The Chamber implements daily operations. The city shares equally in the investment. Visit Napa Valley contributes $30,000. Chamber of Commerce operations side contributes about $160,000. Given the city current budget challenge, we had respectfully proposed the following: a contract for $160,000 for the remaining 2 years of the Welcome Center lease, consistent with our previous verbal agreement. Optional city funding add-ons, wine barrel tree if the city wishes to support the seasonal attraction, and additional funds for destination marketing efforts. For clarity, we also respectfully requested that the city revise the budget line item currently labeled Chamber of Commerce funding to Destination Marketing City Welcome Center. This will ensure the public clearly understands that these funds are not directed to the chambers as an organization, but towards shared civic and tourism services. We believe this response honors a mutual commitment to the Welcome Center that predates this current city administration. We met with the city manager. We thank him for upping his proposal to $125,000 and remain committed to working together. If the final amount approved is $125,000, we will continue to operate the Welcome Center, but it will require the chambers to absorb more than the city's share from our limited budget. This would directly pull from our destination marketing funds, weakening advertising efforts that supported transient occupancy tax, TOT generation, a critical revenue stream for the city. This reduction also puts enhancements like the wine barrel tree at risk, which has been a draw for visitors and community engagement. Our intention tonight is to advocate for a balanced, equitable agreement that recognizes that shared benefits and responsibility of our partnership. I know there's been mention about the board having members in St. Helena and unincorporated St. Helena. I just wanted to mention, as a board member, I am in St. Helena. I am a property owner in St. Helena. I have a business in St. Helena. I also founded a business outside of St. Helena, an unincorporated town. And I had raised my two sons here through elementary school all the way to college. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that, and I hope that we get to continue our partnership in the future.
Thank you. Others wishing to address the City Council? Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening, City Council. Amy Carrabba-Salazar, CEO and President of the St. Helena Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you for the collaboration and the willingness. I was able to meet with 4 of you at the Chamber office in the past couple weeks, go over the finances, look at the books for both budgets, and I think it was just really helpful. The Chamber values the partnership, and we understand the finance and your TOT. If the city's goal is to increase TOT, now's the time to invest in marketing our destination. It's my responsibility to be honest about how this reduction affects our shared goals. We're happy to remain positive, as I said, and make the most of this any city contribution. It could be anything, right? We want to be positive, but we also feel a responsibility to be transparent about what that means for the programs and the services that we're sustaining. Negotiations have been a little bit challenging, and Neil's protecting his house, and we're doing the same, and we completely respect that dynamic. So I want to be clear about that. There's a lot of respect there for the city manager. It's been challenging, but we feel like our longstanding commitment to the Welcome Center is not being equally recognized, and this is a shared investment. But the burden right now of navigating the city's portion has increasingly fallen upon the chamber. For the past 2 years, we stepped in without hesitation when this contract was cut. We stepped in, we've been contributing more to it, but respectfully, continuing to carry the imbalance is unsustainable for my organization. Covering such a large portion of what is traditionally a city service is now having a measurable impact on our organization. So we met with the city manager to discuss the 125 proposal and try to find common ground on that outcome. Again, it's a 1-year contract. That's hard for us to plan and really create a strong strategic plan. If we're doing 1 year and we're back here in 8 months, that's difficult for us. There's a 2-year lease left for the Welcome Center. I know we're all clear on that. The Holiday Wine Barrel Tree, we entered into discussions with this 125 deal that we could partner on raising the funds for the tree, since the chamber is now going to have to fill the gap on your half of the Welcome Center. And we were basically told that the city would not be able to contribute on the team building fundraising efforts, that it would be up to the chamber to have to fundraise. I have my share right now for the barrel tree. I'm good to go, but it's the Welcome Center that's kind of our challenge here. In recent years, the chamber has shouldered the cost of the wine barrel tree installation after city funding was withdrawn. So we've proudly done that for the community and the business community. We did that the last 2 years. We've paid for the tree in full. Tourism was up 14% for November and December because of that tree. I mean, it's vital for tourism and your TOT. We remain committed to doing the best that we can with the limited resources. However, a robust marketing strategy must be prioritized to benefit local businesses, residents, and the city. That becomes difficult with reduced funding. We respectfully ask the council to take these concerns into account. The chamber, like the city, has limited funds, and we have to prioritize sustaining the Welcome Center due to the lease before we can commit to other initiatives like the advertising campaigns for heads to beds. We pay for that with the TID, and then, of course, the tree. During our June 5th meeting with the city manager, we were informed that tonight's council meeting wouldn't have the specifics of the contract, so that's why we're here. You have to be aware of what could possibly happen if we don't have enough funding. It's not too late to let you, the council, determine what is best for the community. We trust whatever you decide, and we will fully support it in a positive manner. We remain hopeful that tonight's meeting fosters honest, collaborative dialogue. We welcome the opportunity to work together towards a solution that reflects our shared commitment to the Welcome Center and the greater St. Helena community. The last thing I'll say is if the $125,000 contribution is the city's final decision, we will gratefully apply those funds to the Welcome Center. But we just want to be clear, we may not be able to maintain the other services, as I mentioned. I give you my word that we will do everything possible to serve the community and the integrity, and just want to have transparency with you all so that you're aware of what possibly might not be able to be done during the holidays. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your time meeting in person. It was so nice just getting to connect with you all. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Others wishing to address the city council on the budget topic? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to, public comment and bring it back to the council for discussion. Not sure, how do you want to handle, are there any other issues of concern since our last meeting on any of the updated items? We probably should have a little dialogue on the chamber issue, but I'm concerned about anything else that is on folks' mind. That may be what's on everybody's mind, but anything else? Any other issues in terms of what was new information today and how we proceed to a vote? Vice Mayor Deasy.
Thank you. Yeah, I would like to discuss the chamber. I feel like one thing that we discussed a little bit, but maybe not as much as we might have, is the concept of putting money towards pension liabilities. I actually did not realize that, and I'm sure I missed a slide at some point, that we were not putting any money toward pension liabilities. I know there's the concern about
any additional money.
Additional, right? I just wonder, and if everyone thinks we shouldn't, that's fine. I just wanted to bring it up one more time because we pay 7% interest on that. So, and I recognize we may not get to what the finance committee suggested, but I wonder if just starting being disciplined in some way would be meaningful. So that was one other topic I thought I'd throw out there in case anyone else is interested. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Others from my colleagues, Mr. Barrick or Ms. Battaroto, any other items? We'll talk about that issue. I think, as I recall, the concern about additional funding for pension liability was going under our 30% reserve, and that's certainly a top. I personally do not want to do that. There's a way to avoid that. I'm all ears, but that is the deep concern I've had, and being in my 11th year on the council, I think that has held our city in good stead by maintaining that reserve during some very challenging times, recessions and other things. So, discipline is absolutely critical, but if you don't have the money and you have other things that are uncertain, it's nice to have that reserve at 30. Frankly, I would like to go higher, but that's the policy that we have. Mr. Mello, I know you can't wait to talk about the chamber contract, but on the issue of is there any room? So the suggestion from the finance committee, if I'm not mistaken, was $500,000. I know we tend to get into these binary decisions, it's this or that. I don't know. What would it be at the end of the second year? 34%. What says the city on that? And I'd like to hear from others. I know Mr. Barrick had some concerns about that also, but I'll go back to you, Mr. Comello, on that, or any other issue you want to talk about at this point.
Sure. So I just want to reinforce what Director Kellogg and I said last time. We certainly agree with Vice Mayor Deasy that we should be putting more money aside and the Finance Committee toward our pension liability and others, by the way. In fact, Councilmember Barrack had mentioned as part of his motion, if you recall, that we should create other funding mechanisms. I'll just leave it broad like that. For asset maintenance and replacement and so on. We haven't been doing that, and we should. I'm hoping that as part of in the next 6 months, with the help of the Finance Committee, we'll come up with a plan to do just that, because part of that will be to identify what is our nut, what is our annual deficit, and we really should consider this to be an annual deficit and build that into our plan for revenue generation. But I think we can, to your point about maybe there's a compromise, and here's what we might want to do. In the next 4 months, we'll be going through the closing of this fiscal year. In end of January, I'll just say, the second meeting in January, we hope to bring to you both the mid-year update as well as the results, the formal results of the audit. The audit will then tell us how much money we have coming out of this fiscal year, if anything, that can go into. So we can use that money, and the council then at that time can make an informed decision. I'll also just say that we will have that rough number probably in November. It won't be formal by the auditor, but we will have that number we can share with the Finance Committee at that point. Also, I'll just say that there are several processes making their way. One is the Finance Committee's work having to do with two things, or actually three things. One is the cost allocation plan that will affect both this as well as when I say this, I mean the general fund as well as the water and wastewater fund. Second is I assume that they'll be working on identifying what is our annual deficit. And third, they'll probably evaluate some options for revenue measures. So those three things will be working towards a resolution. Simultaneously, the next item, or if you choose to postpone it, that's fine, we will be also conducting an efficiency and business transformation study. My expectation is that by December, we'll have the result of that as well. And finally, we'll be bringing to you at the next council meeting a recommendation to identify a contractor to do the class and comp study. That also will be hopefully done by December. So my point is, by the time that we have the second meeting in January, you will have lots of data with which to make an informed decision as to how to proceed on various matters, because all these things, frankly, impact each other, if that makes sense. Hope that answers your question.
It does. I mean, you make a good point, Vice Mayor Deasy, I was trying to draw Mr. Camillo out when I pointed to that one slide that showed the mandatory payments on pension liability and the discretionary payments. There was a council that went through this exact same issue. It's not something that's lost on me. We went through a lot of consternation about that, and we elected to put in more. And as we did that, I think we had a good run there for 4 years, additional money. So it was important to me at that time. I'm the only one here that was on the council, and it was one of the decisions that I firmly supported and still do if we can find the money to do that. I do like I think there is this notion of sort of thinking we pass a budget at the end of the world. Well, this budget is going to be evolving, and maybe there's something to be had there, and looking at this in 4 months and say, okay, can we, because it should be a priority. It makes sense to everybody. But there are other priorities. Others having comments on this particular issue or anything else, and then I'd like to get a little bit of response back on the sort of the status of the chamber contract, make sure we're all on the same page there. Ms. Barrack, have anything else to add to the mix on Ms. Deasy's thoughts about the pension liability?
I'm glad she brought it up. We've talked about it before. I think we're all on the same page. It'd be nice to fund it. It's necessary, but we just don't have the money right now. It's uncertain with the reserve level and the inability to go out for a revenue package in 25. It's just not prudent. It would be good to come back in January and see what could be done.
All right. Sounds like Ms. Santa is along the same lines. Now, dirty laundry. Mr. Mello, I want to move on to the chamber contract. It sucked a lot of energy out of our discussions last time, and it seems like we're actually fairly close to these things, and I hate to minimize the importance of it. It's obviously important. The city, I think the chamber leadership recognizes that they're protecting their organization. We have to protect ours, obviously. I always look back to the cuts that we've had elsewhere, particularly our nonprofits who took a huge haircut. And so it's something that I think everybody needs to do. I am one who probably a little bit of a minority. I think we should be giving the chamber a lot more money, but we don't have the money to give. So we have to strike a balance there on that. That's prudent. We have to use our resources prudently. I support the Welcome Center. Seems like obviously a good thing for the city. Folks expect that when they come to a city. So it seems like, are we that far apart, or where are we? I know you may have wanted one more thing to talk about, but I want to pivot to the chamber, and we can get back to any other final things.
Yeah,
please.
So I've got a couple of slides, but before I do that, let me just say one I forgot to mention earlier. My apologies.
I knew you did, yeah.
Councilmember Barrick reminded me, over the next few months, we also will know whether we are dipping into a recession or how, what that is. We have a precarious situation, and I know he has mentioned that before, so I want to acknowledge that. Also, we will know whether or not what our status is with regard to our fund balance. I think that's the other thing we need to keep our eye on, and I think that those two factors will be also important data points to consider. With that, I'll move to the chamber. I got a couple of things I wanted to say. And one is that, I went into these conversations really thinking about two things. One is, how does this look a year from now? And how do I present as your city manager? Mind you, and I appreciate what Marcus said, I'm not the city manager for Meadowwood or Brasswood. I'm the city manager for the city of St. Helena. And so my interests are, how do I help the local businesses thrive and survive and grow and essentially generate TOT for the city. The other is I wanted to think about it from the employee's perspective. If the city does not have any cuts that is accrued from the chamber, then how do I face my employees, or rather your employees, who are not being paid market wages right now, and 50,000 represent approximately 0.5% for all 80 employees or all 90 employees, 0.5% of COLA. And so to me, I just want to make sure that the council is reminded that from my perspective as city manager, I have to look at that as well. There are other factors involved. Also, I think that going into a possible ballot measure in 2026, it is good that to have the chamber be a partner in that regard, meaning that the chamber sees a cut so that we are all doing what I think you have characterized as joint or shared sacrifice. So the way I understand it, where we ended up last week, unless I misunderstood, unless there's a misunderstanding, I proposed a one-year contract because that's what the council has chosen to give, or will be giving, as you may know, to our employees. But there's another reason for that. It also allows us to think about a marketing strategy. What I've become acutely aware in the last few weeks is that having begun to serve now on the Napa Valley Tourism Corporation Board, that we are I'm going to not use that word, we are linked very closely with our friends at the Napa Valley, Visit Napa Valley, and the local St. Helena TID, the Tourism Improvement District. In that sense, we really need to come up with a joint strategy. We can't be thinking about this independently. And so I think the executive director, Amy, just mentioned that we need to have a strategy, a long-term strategy. I think that needs to happen in collaboration. And just so you know, I've invited them, all three groups, and they all three have accepted the chamber, the TID, and the Napa Valley Tourism Corporation to make a presentation at the next meeting. Anyway, the way I see it at this point, my proposal that I'll bring back, and I need to work on the contract, and my apologies for not doing that yet, I've not had a chance to get to it, is to provide a one-year contract so that we'll have time to work on those issues in terms of strategy and accounting. My hope is that we are able to send a clear message that our new contract will target and utilize taxpayer funds only to promote businesses that are within the city or the city itself. I understand that the $50,000 cut is going to be significant and not easy given the budget size. I'm hoping, as I've heard, that the $25,000 will be raised by the chamber. Apparently, it's been already raised, unless I misunderstood that. I misunderstood? My apologies. Okay.
That's what I understood too, but oh well. Okay, we'll have to clarify that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I misheard then. One of the things that I wanted to share is that historically...
Can you go back to the last slide?
Yeah.
So I understand. I'm not sure what you mean by can be directed to any marketing program. Explain that, please.
Well,
what are you referring to there? I'm not even sure what that means.
Well, the city has historically given the chamber a variety of numbers. Say in 2019, as I recall, it was 210, and then during the pandemic it went up. Last couple of years, it has been 175, and those monies were targeted to destination marketing. I was asked whether there would be any controls, or I guess forget the word I was using, how they would use that. And my response was no, that's, your business, that's fine, as long as we move forward, we discuss how we use it, how we use the funds that we agree on. So that's why I'm saying it really is important for the city to be engaged with the chamber and the TID and the Napa Valley Tourism Corporation, or Visit Napa Valley, to determine what the marketing strategy should be to maximize the use of taxpayer funds and the funds that are paid through by our visitors in our hotels.
Understood.
So that we can take that money and decide what our strategy is. Right now, the city's really not been involved in those conversations, and I think that each of these entities are making those decisions separately. And I think it would behoove us as a community to have these three entities collaborate and talk and make those decisions together. And by the way, there could be differences. Having talked to Amy in the past, I've learned that she has some really good ideas that I wish other entities would incorporate. And I think that we should be talking about those as well.
Okay. Thank you.
So one of the things that I've had challenges on historically is getting access to accounting data, and now we are finally getting that. But I understand that has to be, it's an acronym of their bylaws. But so I'm not. I understand that they are potentially going to change those, which is wonderful. But the city, as its contract, has a contract with the chamber, as we have with all the entities that we grant monies to be able to get outcomes and be able to get accounting information. By the way, when the city receives funds from, whether it's a federal government, the state government, or any other local jurisdiction, we too have to submit information based on the requirements of the contract. And finally, I think even in 2019, I'm concerned about marketing our downtown businesses. It's really important that we find a way to market our downtown businesses. We also need to think about what is our return on investment. These are city monies and taxpayer funds. And right now, I have no way as your city manager to determine whether or not those funds are being utilized in the best manner possible, which is why this year I said I'll be happy to, once this contract is signed, have the chamber make the decision as to how best it uses those funds. And finally, I just want to make sure that we remind ourselves that we have a $3 million deficit. And for me, as I said earlier, how we use that $50,000 matters, whether we use it for, say, employee raises or other purposes. And finally, as I said, well, not finally, but these are the three groups that I think we need to be working with, and certainly our own chamber, but also the other two entities that are in the space. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Questions? Pushback? Threats? No.
So I actually, I guess a couple things. So from what I understand, to operate the visitor center in St. Helena, the Welcome Center, it's over $300,000. So our $175,000 is going to that. I think I'm correct in that. So to say that we want our money is being used specifically for our city. The businesses, their advertising is coming from their dollars that they're putting toward the chamber, which I'm understanding they're working it so that if they are not just giving money directly to the chamber, if it's coming through TID, that also is being taken into consideration to make sure that they are being marketed appropriately given how much they're giving back to the chamber and to the city. With that being said, I think it's great. Thank you very much for all the negotiations that have been done. I appreciate and I really do value the chamber and our partnership, and I really want to see us continue that partnership. If they're okay with the $50,000 cut, I think it wouldn't be bad for us, because I did understand that when they were saying they have their half, meaning they have what they had before their half. They still need the other half for the barrel tree. So I think we, as a community, it wouldn't be bad for us to collaborate with the chamber in trying to raise money for the tree. I think it would be easier if we just had like one GoFundMe rather than two separate ones, something like that, and we can share links. As far as who would be in charge of it, I mean, I don't know that it really matters. But that can be a discussion later on. I think, though, if we can come to an agreement that we work together to raise that money, hopefully we can raise over $25,000 toward the barrel tree. So, but those are my thoughts.
All right, good thoughts. Mr. Barrett, we're now focusing intently on the chamber contract. Excuse me, the destination marketing Welcome Center funding, right? Ms. Barrett, what are your thoughts?
So more clarification. So a lot of talk about the Welcome Center and prior commitments that we had, the city of St. Helena made for this Welcome Center. And then it looked like a few years back, we decided for whatever reason to cut that funding, but it still comes up today. Is there any document, evidence, or is there anybody who can vouch on the city side that we did agree to that? Because it seems unusual that the city would go back on its word. And so I'm curious about that.
I'm looking to others here, perhaps Director Kellogg. I can just say this is, by the way, another reason why we need longevity of employees. I'm just in the previous conversation. But I don't have any knowledge of that. Sorry.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any knowledge of the conversations that the city would have had with the chamber for that commitment, but there is language in their contracts that does specify the Welcome Center and the operations of the Welcome Center.
Language that we would share in that, or language that they would solely be responsible for that?
It's not clear in there. It just that the chamber will maintain the Welcome Center with a certain number of hours of operations, a minimum of 5 days per week, but it doesn't specify that the city is responsible for a portion of that cost.
Mr. Barrett, to your point, I think I have interpreted that language as being, and this is where we can certainly, this is why we need more time to talk about it, because this thing only comes up right during budget season, and we have really not had a chance to explore those, so perhaps that language needs to be clarified. I've interpreted all those items on that list as being services or tasks that the chamber will be performing for the price or the amount listed. That's how I've seen it. But clearly there have been other conversations from what I've been asserted that perhaps were, other commitments were being made.
Okay. Well, it seems to me that if we have a contract that stipulates what they will do, and now we're not paying for any of it, it seems to indicate that there was some agreement that we would give X dollars and they would perform, have PKIs essentially that they would need to meet. So that should be further explored. Just my personal opinion would be that if it is indeed the case that we entered in those commitments in good faith, that we would restore that funding. And so I'd be interested on how that turns out. Thank you.
I see here. I'm a little confused by the lack of, we don't have any kind of information, or, I think it's probably better to rather than, my gut feeling is to accept that as the case, right? Yeah, we made a commitment. I don't even know if that should even be challenged. I mean, I feel like, okay, well, you're sure? We have to take people at their word, and I always have. I always like, yeah, we made it. I personally, I was on the council. I don't have that knowledge personally. I didn't have a conversation. I'm getting older. I have a lot of details in my brain, and that was not one that I kept. I don't think that was ever expressed to the council in public by the previous city manager. Let's just assume it is and move on, right? I mean, they have a lease. I think we need to focus on solutions and look at the long term. What are we going to do after this lease? I am a little concerned that, they have, the lease amount will go up. The 1 year is a little troubling to me, but I get your theory there that we've made that commitment to our own employees. Certain businesses want certainty. They're, in a way, a business. They want certainty. I'm not sure. I want us to be looking forward, but not sort of sideswiping someone where it's irreversible, right? And that was sort of the hint. Maybe that's what I thought I was directing the staff to do the last time. Like, go back and work it out, And frankly, I'm okay with this. I think it's a little low, frankly, but that's all right. I don't want to be doing this in public. That's your job. That's what we directed you to do, strike a deal. We shouldn't be negotiating that in public because there's more information that you probably need. I don't know. Do you think we can strike a deal without the council involvement? We're close. Maybe we have a deal.
Well, I thought we have a deal, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Okay. I had another thought. I lost it. I'll come back to it in a minute. Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yeah, I am concerned about the chamber funding and the chamber relationship. It's an important partner, and I am worried that we're looking at this as a grant where we would expect grant reporting, but nonprofits don't just take grants, they take fee-for-service contracts, and that's what we have here. So I think it's a distinction, and I understand the point about writing this up as a contribution. Really, they're providing a service, but small cities like ours depend on partnerships, and I think we should be talking about strengthening this partnership. They have a lot to offer, and I'm really concerned about the way marketing hits our bottom line, like to save a little bit of money but hurt our businesses, and then our own revenue feels counterproductive to me. And I think there was one more point that I think that the chamber attends every TID meeting, so I think they are collaborating with them. I think they had a board position, but gave it up just to avoid any conflicts of interest. But I think there is some great collaboration happening already, and it might be on us as a city to get in there in the collaboration. I just think this is a really important partnership, and I'd like it to feel more positive than it feels right now.
Do we all have a sense that we're all at the same point with respect to the number that's reached, the contribution or the funding? It was 175. There was at one point it would be 160. We've offered 125. Are we all? I guess the point I'm making. Do we have comfort in giving our city manager the authority to work that out, or are we needing to give more specific direction? And if so, what is the consensus around what that direction is? That's one point to think about for a second. The other point I think it's important to make is, this point about raising money, raising funds for things like barrel trees. There's a real big policy implication here that I think is lost on folks. It's not a good idea, frankly, to have your staff members, department heads, city manager actively involved in raising money for certain things. It's fraught with all kinds of challenges. It's not appropriate. We can certainly assist, we can support, but so there's language there that we need to kind of worry about. We start sending our staff off to, bang on the door to be asking for money. That is a problem. That is fraught with all kinds of potential conflicts of interest, public relations messes, just things that we don't want to go down. So I get the fact that we shouldn't be doing that, but we certainly we have a history of assisting others, helping others, providing our support. Maybe I'm missing that point, Mr. Camelo, but maybe you don't agree with me, but that would be my concern.
Well, the federal government is doing that now, so why shouldn't we? That's a joke, never mind. But no, I think I really appreciate you saying that, Mr. Mayor. But I just want to honor what Councilmember Spadaro said. There are things we could do to support. Yeah, so one of those, for example, we could put a nice ad in the newsletter and get that word out. We can do that frequently. So there are things that way we can do. I feel more comfortable doing that than, Director De Rosa calling all the folks that have TUPs in front of us coming up saying, hey, that would feel very, very wrong. So yes, there are ways in which we can collaborate with the chamber, and we certainly will.
What does my council think about the question about the consensus? Do we want to give more more specific direction? Because I thought we had it, but maybe we didn't. We're not clear enough. I think everybody in this room probably has a different idea what the number should be, frankly. And it's getting to be kind of frustrating for me, frankly. It's important. You raise the question about that's money that could be going to things like, staff and other things, raises, those kinds of things. Does anybody have a comment on that? Or do we want to leave that to Mr. Camelo to just work that out?
Well, maybe another way to put it is, let me remind you of what I thought we had an agreement
or
on.
direct me to work it out.
Well,
No, I'm kidding, Mr. Camelo. Go ahead. I don't want to do that.
This is hard for them. I get it, and
Yes.
so I think
And it's hard for us too. Yeah.
I thought the minimum they were willing to accept was 25,000, and they were hoping to raise a second 25,000. What I said was that if they don't raise a second 25,000, the city will make up the difference. In other words, they're accepting, if that's a contract, $25,000 cut, potentially another $25,000 cut. But if they market themselves and we get the money and we will do what we can, then there's that extra. So my goal is 50,000. But if we don't get there, that's fine, as long as the council is okay with understanding that.
You're talking about just the barrel tree itself, or?
I'm talking about the full contract going down from 175.
Oh, the whole 50,000. Yeah, no.
Yeah, my apologies.
I'm asking the question because we're going all around the map here.
Thank you. I'll
Say that one more time.
Yeah, certainly. So I was saying, the contract for the current fiscal year is 175.
I understand that.
My goal would have been to drop it down to 125. I know that's difficult. So my hope was they would raise at least 25,000 of that amount. I thought that was their intention, unless I'm misunderstanding that. And so we would guarantee them to backfill that second 25. So then the worst case scenario would be for them to take a cut of 25,000, but potentially if they raise 25, then the city could save 25,000 is my point.
All right. And the point I made earlier on is we have to take people at their word that there was a commitment, and the Welcome Center obviously includes a lease. So I'm more comfortable bumping that out closer to what that lease amount is, or our share of it. That would be my direction. I'm only one person, not intending to undercut your authority.
No, that's fine.
But I'm just, the two go together rather than, oh, well, did that really happen? And so that's my preference. What do others think about that?
I would second that,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So that's the 160 share, right? That's what they were talking about, half of that. And that, I'm not suggesting that's a number, but that's what has been suggested as half the lease. If we go back to the original sort of theory here, is that we have obligated ourselves to this Welcome Center, we should be funding half that lease.
Right.
You may have a little wiggle room there, but is that enough direction for you, or is that still not quite right?
So what I hear you saying is that it goes down from 175 to 160.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. That's the direction, sure.
But, that's me. That's one person.
Yeah.
Assisting with the Beltree, supporting the things you're talking about, newsletters or those kinds of things. We have capacity issues here. Others may not agree with me, but we do have a lot on our plate. But I think we can probably assist there, right, a little bit? In terms of the additional fundraising? Is the council okay?
I don't know if they will be doing fundraising. I could be wrong. If you get 160, you still be doing fundraising?
I don't need to fundraise if you're covering
Right.
your half of the Welcome Center.
Right.
I don't have to.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
subsidize that,
Okay.
And then we will put the barrel tree up. You have my word.
Okay. All right, I don't think we need to have much more conversation about this. I'm trying to work to a solution. You have other ideas here? And I'm not trying to force my will on anyone. It's getting to a point where we're, okay. All right. What do we need? Is this council ready to adopt this budget tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. With all the changes, I don't know how we do that. What's the magic language? We only had this one little change there, but we had all the additional ups and downs. I mean, there's a resolution, I guess, to adopt the resolution with that one item. Are there other items that we needed to call out, Mr. Camello?
There were no other items, but I don't know if it would be easier
I'm
to
sorry,
adopt
yeah.
the resolution as is, but then when we bring the chamber contract, increase the funding amount and make an adjustment that way. I think that
That's
might
fine.
be simpler.
That would be fine.
Okay. Thank you.
We keep our word.
Can we do that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it would be a budget adjustment. Yeah.
It wouldn't be adoption,
Right.
We can do that whenever we want. We can, up and down. I'm just saying, okay.
Okay. So I'll look for a motion to adopt the resolution approving this budget as laid out by our staff.
I also motion to adopt the staff recommended budget.
All right.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Do we have enough clarity on that? Seems like everybody knows what that is.
I think we do. It might be worthwhile to have a second motion after you adopt the budget, directing staff to come back on the chamber item.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking also. Okay. Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Barrick,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Deasy,
Yes.
Spataroto,
Yes.
and Mayor Doring.
Yes. Now, on this issue of directing the city manager to come back with a little revision, what do we need specifically? Do we need a motion? And what would be the motion?
I think it'd be worthwhile to do a motion to direct the city manager to come back with an amendment to with the update to the contract consistent with the direction the council has given.
So moved. I'll make that motion. I don't typically make motions, but I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to direct the city manager to come back with the amendments as directed by the city council to the chamber contract. Roll call, please.
Mayor Doring,
Yes.
Councilmember Barrick,
Yes.
Spataroto,
Yes.
and Vice Mayor Deasy.
Yes.
And me, yes. Yeah. Did I say yes? Okay. It's lost audio. We're going to take a short break. How many? People's Edification at Home, approval of resolution authorizing the city manager to execute professional services agreement with Matrix Consulting Group for an efficiency and business transformation study for an amount not to exceed $90,960. Mr. Camelo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is the item that Councilmember Barrick had intended to pull and perhaps postpone. So if that's still the intent, I'm happy to table this item and bring it back next time. In the meantime, if you recall, Councilmember Barrick and Vice Mayor Deasy had been working with staff on the scope of the project and so on. So it may be that staff would benefit from further conversations with the two of them subsequent to this meeting, and we can bring it back as early as the 24th.
Okay. Mr. Barrick? Is that consistent with your understanding? I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yes, that's consistent. I think the vice mayor and I would do well with some more time to unpack the findings with staff so we can get on the same page.
Sounds great. I think communication is critical, and if you can make the process better, particularly from what I'm understanding, having our community understand what the purpose of it is, what the benefits are, what the ultimate result is, to justify a fairly significant cost. So that would be good. I would support that recommendation that we continue that matter. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you for that. All right. So that is, we'll move that to another time. We're now on to city council reports. Any particular reports, any reporting from my colleagues on any matters? I have no reports that I can actually share. We had an MBTA closed session, but that is something not for public consumption, so let's see what else. Flood control, we're continuing to acquire properties, getting down to the very end of acquiring most of the properties. There's maybe 3 or 4 that will probably go to a litigation, at least the initial litigation. We'll be going to the ABAG General Assembly on Friday, June 20th. I'll report back on that. Always exciting to go to San Francisco for ABAG. Let's see. I am concerned, Mr. Camelo, about coverage on some of our other committees, and I don't know if that's something that we need to talk about. I know we typically discuss those matters sort of in the beginning of the year. As you know, we have a council member who has not been able to attend all the assignments, and maybe there may be a match. I just want to make sure we have coverage. I am, to be honest with you, tapped out in terms of the number of committees I'm committed to. Otherwise, I would volunteer. Is that something that we should just have a conversation about later, or it's something on folks' mind? I don't know how to handle that. What do you think?
Thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Mayor.
Well, yeah.
It
It technically is not on the agenda, but I just, I want to have at some point, we want to make sure that we're getting reports and coverage from all of our members.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have had conversations with Councilmember Summers. He is very anxious to get back and serve on the community, on the council and on the various committees that he's been assigned. He feels awful that he's not been able to be here. He is trying to come for the meeting of the June 24th, but has indicated to me that it's possible he will not be able to make it. I understand that there are also, he's assigned to various committees and that are outside of St. Helena, so it may be that maybe the next meeting or the meeting after that, we may need to have a question about whether he should be assigned, someone else should be assigned to some of those other committees.
Fair enough. And that's the point I'm making. I don't want to, it's not my point to chastise or make judgments about why someone's not here, but I think we owe it to our community and our regional partners to make sure that it's covered. And so, okay, we'll have that discussion going forward. Anything else, Mr. Camelo or Madam Clerk, for the good of the order here? All right. Thank you all. Good work. Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night, folks.